Thanks so much, Jay. It's great to be here. My name's Mike Naughton. I'm the Regional Practice Leader for Management Liability at Gallagher. I've been insuring cannabis businesses in the D&O space since 2014, and it's been quite a ride to get here. Originally working for the Guarantee Company of North America, I first placed D&O policies in 2014, the first ever in the world, and I've been really interested in supporting this space ever since. So what is D&O insurance? As it says here, Directors and Officers Liability is a dynamic insurance policy that will pay the legal defense costs and damages that stem from the decisions and actions of an organization's senior leaders. You guys are all big risk takers. This is why you got into this space. It's exciting. And having a policy like this in your corner allows you to keep taking those risks you want to take. D&O insurance is a great financial tool for reducing the risks and giving your directors and officers the peace of mind to make some really challenging decisions. There's a lot going on. It's a brand new space. Well, not so brand new anymore, but it's still evolving and maturing, and we're all in this boat together. This policy really should be in your corner to allow you to have that freedom to really, push the boundaries of a really exciting industry. So the basic value proposition of a directors and officers policy is that, subject to all other terms and conditions, the policy provides coverage for losses that are arising from claims made during the policy period alleging a wrongful act against an insured acting in an insured capacity that is not otherwise excluded under this policy. Now, a loss, that's comprised of legal defense costs as well as damages. A claim has to be made during the policy period, as these are claims made policies versus an occurrence policy. Now, a wrongful act is extremely broad on a directors and officers policy and picks up things like misstatements, errors, omissions, just all kinds of things that you guys could possibly do wrong in the management or mismanagement of your business. Now, this can be alleged. So whether it's legitimate or illegitimate, these policies will provide you coverage. And by the end of it, we'll find out if it is legitimate. These are claims made against an insured acting in an insured capacity. So that means they have to be, doing duties for the corporation. And these people doing it can be the directors and officers, key managers, the spouse in certain situations, and a huge laundry list of other people. And now, these policies don't pick up everything. There's a huge number of exclusions that clarify how this policy should play, and those are super important as well. Now, these policies are complicated, but they're not rocket surgery. These claims can come in against either directors and officers or the corporation. As you can see on this flow chart, the first claim, it comes in against an individual, and whether or not indemnification is available is a key point. Typically, indemnification is defined as making whole. So you guys have paid legal defense costs or damages, and the intention is to make you whole, give you your money back. Now, is the indemnification available? That's a no because of, bankruptcy. We can't make you whole. We have no money, or there's laws stating we cannot, or we just choose not to. So that's the key element of this policy called Side A coverage, and that protects your personal assets. Just by sitting on the board of directors, you can put your house and car at risk, and this is the foundation of these insurance policies. Looking a little bit further down, the indemnification is available. We are still solvent. We have cash to put back in your bank. Side B coverage kicks in. We make the directors and officers whole, and then money is reimbursed to the corporation, protecting your balance sheet. Third way a claim can come in is alleging a corporation has had a wrongful act, and that's called Side C coverage. And this is incredibly powerful, as regularly corporations are named as a defendant in a lawsuit, and these can get really hairy. For nonprofit and private companies, the definitions and what a claim can be comprised of is super broad. However, for publicly traded companies, it's a bit more narrow and limited to security class action lawsuits. So why D&O insurance? There's a number of really good reasons why you should consider this coverage. First and foremost, as I noted, it protects the personal assets of directors and officers. It also protects the company's balance sheet, giving you, a lot of confidence to go out there and make those key decisions. Furthermore, it provides access to best-in-class legal counsel, maybe allowing you to afford a better class of lawyer, or, somebody that's really highly skilled in this area. Next, it allows you to attract top talent, Many directors and officers will require you to have this policy in place before they're willing to sit on the board. It allows your management to perform at their very best. As I've noted, having this in your back pocket gives you the confidence to go out and do some crazy stuff. Now, venture capitalists and investors will often require this to be in place as they think it's going to secure their investment. It gives them confidence that, if you guys make mistakes, their cash isn't going to go up in flame. Then, you can go public with confidence. During the process of going public, there are a huge number of representations or misrepresentations that you may make, and those can really come back to bite you. And finally, emerging risks. Years ago, we didn't think cyber liability would be something that a D&O policy would pick up on. These days, there's a chance that it will be. Event-driven litigations are happening all the time where something bad happens, it affects you negatively. Suddenly there's a lawsuit that carries on, and these policies will hopefully be there to make you guys whole. So some common sources of directors and officers liability claims. These come from shareholders, employees, customers, governmental agencies, competitors, and creditors. Your shareholders want to see their investments protected, and anything that really damages them, that's not great. You have a cyber attack and your stock plummets, or horrific news comes out that somebody's been hurt from the products that you guys created. If that really affects your market cap, obviously that's a real challenge. This isn't just for publicly traded companies. Investors of private companies, they want to see their investments. They want to see the investments profit as well. Looking at employees, wrongful employment practices have been sort of the paper cut of the D&O insurance for years. These things can run you into the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and it's a real challenge. Employees these days, they more than ever, they know what's available out there and what their rights are. If you fire them for no good reason, you should probably expect that a litigation is going to follow. These days, it's 2021. We're not in 1920. And the things that were bad in 2020 are definitely horrific right now. We've seen a huge number of issues evolved during, since the Me Too movement has happened. Diversity is key for any business this day. And if you're not paying attention to this stuff, it can really put you in hot water. Now, customers, these are the people that are really paying the bills. If they're damaged, if you guys are claiming things that really aren't true about your products, there could be a major issue. If their personal private information is leaked out, as a medical client, that's a major issue. And, these are regular sources of litigations. Now, looking at governmental agencies, cannabis is highly regulated and there's a lot of eyes on you guys. Health Canada, if you are offside with them and they want to strip you of a license, you can expect a lawsuit coming down the pipeline. It's an emerging area, and hopefully as the time goes by, the reins are loosened a bit, and we can really sort of put the pedal down. But at this time, if you're stepping outside of what you're allowed to do for advertising, if they want to take a run and make an example of you, they sure will, and it's going to cost you a lot. Now, as far as competitors, these guys are wanting to profit just as much as you are. Intellectual property is a real hot item right now, and we're starting to see the first lawsuits coming out of that. Keep an eye on that, and hopefully everybody can learn to get along moving forward. And then finally, creditors, just to get the credit, you put a set of financial statements in front of them, and those better be tight. If you didn't make correct disclosures and it comes back that they find it and pull your financing, you can guess what's coming next. Directors and officers lawsuit. Now, looking at factors that have caused this market to be a real challenge, there's a few that I want to highlight. First of all, in Canada, there's extremely limited capacity for cannabis directors and officers insurance policies. What that means is there's really only a few companies that are willing to do this, and they have a huge concentration of you guys on their books. 5 companies really come to mind that are pushing this forward, and they've really done a lot to support this space. We can't have American insurers for the most part providing this coverage, and that's where most of the capital lies. Since 2016, cannabis companies have accounted for 20% of all securities class action lawsuits. This is staggering. Of all the industries out there, 1 in 5 security class action lawsuits comes from a cannabis company. As an insurer looking at this, it's really easy to say, no thanks, we'll take a pass and focus on the other things that we're looking to partner on. Now, and then, the directors and officers liability as a whole has been unprofitable and arguably unsustainable for years. The coverage in Canada is incredibly broad. The pricing has been so competitive and people have just undercut for years. Combine that with the fact that the investment returns these guys have been receiving have been, under 1-2%. It's been really hard to turn a profit. They can't invest in Dogecoin. Now, switching into a few hot topics in the directors and officers liability, these are the areas that, of late are really pushing the needle, and I want to spend a little bit of time talking about. Your IPO, your RTO, uplisting, whether you're using a SPAC or, any of these other traditional methods. These are supposed to be really exciting times for your business, really celebrated times. However, they're some of the most high-risk times in your company's life cycle. You've gone out on the road, made a ton of representations of what your company does and what they're going to do, and then once you're a publicly traded company, you better come through on that stuff. The investors made their decision based upon what you guys have said, and if they're receiving anything less, there's a good chance they're going to want to get some sort of compensation for the loss. M&A. This is another area in the company's life cycle that could either be a great time or a really poor time. We see a lot of this coming down, people either wanting to exit the business for a profit, or maybe they're not doing so well. And, there's some assets that they can sell. And, again, they've made representations to the purchasing company that when the transaction goes through, these better be factual. Certain directors and officers may carry on with the new organization, and that company may not want to indemnify them for, the sins of the past. Now, another company life cycle sort of area where I'd like to talk about is bankruptcy and solvency. This hasn't been, something we've seen a ton of in the cannabis space to date. However, maybe sometime the taps are going to be turned off. We've seen a lot of red ink in this space, and, investors have a lot of other options at their disposal these days. These policies are key in a bankruptcy scenario. And, if you can't have, a sale of your business, insolvency might be what's in your future. So it's a really important thing to have these directors and officers liability policies in place at that time. Now, cyber liability and privacy is, something that really keeps me up at night. This is sort of the hot topic of insurance across the board these days. I'm not really sure how we stand a chance against these hackers. If they want to crack into your business, it seems as though there's nothing that can stop them these days. Across the board in cannabis, this really, gives me the chills. Whether you're a retail client, how are you going to operate if your POS system is down, or if they gain access to your medical records, or as a major LP publicly traded, what happens when you can't get online for days on end? What are your investors going to think of? And now, we're seeing the Internet of Things regularly hacked. And an example I saw recently was, a fish tank, a smart fish tank was hacked at a casino, and they gained access to their system there. This could happen to your, smart systems in your agricultural process, and, they could ruin an entire season's crop. It's incredibly scary. Now, in the employment practice realm, we've seen the Me Too movement really shake things out. As I noted before, things that weren't acceptable in 1920 definitely aren't acceptable now. We have to treat everybody with respect, and that's great. Discrimination, there's no place for that in business anymore. And if that's how you're operating, that's not great. These policies will provide coverage for legal defense costs and damages potentially in this space. However, from the underwriting side, you don't feel great providing this coverage. Now, one of the trends that is a real standout is tied to culture. When you have a culture of these types of items happening, the claim could be brought against the corporation, and often there's no coverage available for this. So, you got to really tighten up and make sure that your corporate culture is in line with the modern trends. So another really hot item is, the United States, our southern neighbors, the land of milk and honey. this is a market, people that love to consume all things. We're all eyeing up with the hopes of them having a seismic shift and really starting to support this space. I think there's a lot of positive movement, and we're heading in the right direction. But until that federal switch, happens, we're really stuck with our hands tied from an insurance standpoint and business operations. We've seen some people dipping their toe in, and usually it's at their own risk. It's a really challenging thing to insure because of the federal, legality of cannabis in the United States. Until we see a major switch, it's something we really have to be cautious about considering as Canadian cannabis producers or Canadian cannabis business. Looking at the products, this is something that wouldn't really be considered a directors and officers liability coverage item. However, all things kind of bleed into directors and officers liability. If you're a CBD company and you're making claims about what your product does or doesn't do, sure, clients or customers can bring forth a lawsuit if they feel that that's wrong. And if that really damages you, that could easily turn into a directors and officers liability claim. Now, looking at major, black swan things or long tail claims, there still are unproven health circumstances that, in time could prove to be a huge impact on your business. With what we're seeing in vapes, it's largely untested, and down the road, if something like this snowballs, you could easily see that this could push a company into insolvency. Intellectual property, that's obviously something that people are really striving to have and use. A lot of money has been invested into novel products, novel delivery systems, and all kinds of things. We've seen our first set of lawsuits coming through, and they're massive. This isn't an intellectual property insurance policy. However, if you're sued and this basically brings your business down to a valuation of $0, you can expect your shareholders, to be recouped for their loss. Now, I put COVID-19 in here as well. It's interesting. There's definitely been winners and losers of COVID-19. It's something I like to talk about with our clients. How is this impacting you? Obviously, it's had to be disclosed in financial statements. It wreaked havoc in the early days on the retailers. It was with the essential, designation. It was a huge boon, and I think people sitting at home for all this time is definitely driven sales up. But I think the total impact of COVID-19 is still to be seen. Now, setting yourself up for success, there's a few things you can do. First and foremost, get started early. This is a really challenging insurance space, and expecting a turnaround in a day, a week, 2 weeks, it's real tough. There's a lot of eyes on this, and we need to get a significant amount of information before insurance companies are usually willing to provide you with a quote. I always like to have our clients sign an NDA and have an open and fulsome dialogue. If we aren't having that exchange, we can't really, determine what the best outcome is for you. If you're planning, to go on certain markets, if you're planning to go international, we should be placing you with an insurance carrier that can support that. View directors and officers as a long-term partnership. Every year, we're going to have to renegotiate this, and if we're changing the tune every year, it only makes things challenging. There's a handful of insurance carriers, and if you burn a couple of them, even just one, it can really jeopardize the future of your insurance program. And then last but not least, partner with a well-regarded and capable broker specialist. Not just being capable, but well-regarded. There's been a lot of bridges burned over the last 8 years in this space, and not everybody's doing it right. Just because you have a shiny, marketing pamphlet and a lot of LinkedIn posts doesn't mean that you really know what's going on here. Placing insurance is just part of it, but educating you on what is available, what's happening, what you're covered for, what you're not, is huge, as well as having a claims team to support you in the, in the unfortunate scenario where you do have a loss. Bob at Main Street Insurance, he's a great guy, but maybe he's not prepared to support you in a securities class action lawsuit. Maybe he is, sorry. But partner with somebody, stick with them, and get ready for a wild ride. And thanks so much for joining me. If you'd like to talk further, please join us in the breakout room. I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.